Okay, this is perspective. Perspective is a mathematical system that artists designed to convey form and space, okay? So, I'm going to show, there's 3 different types. The first one's atmospheric, and that's really used in landscape, where when you see things up close to you that are sharp and focused and lots of color, but when you look far away in the distance, the more fuzzy they seem to get, the farther away they get, that's atmospheric perspective. That's what we're doing here. We're going to do 2 mathematical types. Isometric is the first one. And this is used mostly in the art of China and in like video games and home design softwares, things like that. And it's a way of devising space that does not take into consideration that things get smaller as they recede from you in space. So, with isometric perspective, you always start with, like, say, the box looking straight up at you, the square, okay? And then you take the spatial lines and you hash mark your way in a parallel fashion all the way back. They never meet. They always go on forever and ever, on and on, equidistant to each other. Pick a spot anywhere along on that middle line, drop it down straight, drop it down straight across. Notice how these are all sort of parallel to each other. And you've just created your box in isometric perspective. But the lines will never get smaller. They'll always continue to go on straight like that, forever and ever. This is designed especially for clarity. If you're in a video game or if you're designing for a home, you want the viewer to be able to see things around corners a little bit more, okay? That's what this is for. It's designed for clarity. But it doesn't really particularly look particularly realistic, all right? But in the 1500s, a bunch of Italians got together and decided to come up with something called linear perspective. And there are 3 types of linear perspective, and the first one's called one-point. One-point perspective talks about one vanishing point, okay? So we start with this design system with a horizon line. That's what I'm drawing here. Think of this as a theoretical line between the sky and the earth. It's just a made-up one, okay? Okay. So, pick a spot anywhere on this horizon line. This is a vanishing point. This is where all the spatial lines, rather than going off forever into space equidistantly, they're all going off to this vanishing point. So let's take a look at one-point perspective. I'm going to draw a box here, another square here. Alright? And then you take the spatial lines, but this time you go all the way back, and they all converge, on that vanishing point in the back. Pick a dot here along here in the middle line, anywhere along there. Draw it straight down, draw it straight across, and you've just completed your box in one-point perspective. Notice how it's getting slightly smaller as it recedes in space. That's what linear perspective does take into consideration. If in your line of sight, if someone is standing in front of a line of people, the person in front of you is going to be the largest, but the one behind him is going to be slightly smaller, and the one behind him is going to be even slightly smaller than that, and on, smaller, smaller, smaller. That's what linear perspective takes into consideration. This box could be drawn above the horizon line, on the horizon line, doesn't matter. The spatial lines all go back to this point. And there's your box in one-point perspective there, etc. Okay? All over the place it could go. But notice that one-point perspective has limitations. The box will always be facing exactly front to you, which is why most artists don't use this very often, other than as a way to like really catch your attention. Okay? That's one-point perspective. Two-point perspective, as you can imagine, has 2 vanishing points. So we'll start with our horizon line again. One point here and another point over here. This time, the home or the box or whatever is going to be pointing with its front angle towards the front. So you start with a line this time rather than a square. You'll see what I mean here in a minute, okay? To most Western eyes, this seems more like a normal perspective. You take the top and the bottom of this line, and you take the spatial lines and go back to this side, top and the bottom, up over to here, and over this side as well. I'm just going to eyeball it. There we go. And there we go. Okay, like that. Then you pick a dot anywhere along this top hash mark line and draw a line straight down. Do the same thing over here. Then you take this dot here and you go ahead in the opposite direction to create the top of your box. And you take this line over here and head over in the opposite direction to create this top of this box, and you've just created your box in 2-point perspective, okay? All right, there you go. Now, if you were doing a home, let's say in this, you would have to consider that say I'm doing a door here, all the lines are going to be straight up and down in 2-point perspective. Notice they're all straight up and down, all of them, if they're going in this direction. But the lines that create the top of the doorway all converge to this back line there. Say I was going to do a row of windows above that. I'd have to go back here. And there would be the top of my windows here. And then straight up and down, straight up and down, straight up and down, straight up and down. See how that all works in conjunction. If it was on this side of the wall, of this side of the box, let's say we're going to put another big door here. Again, back to the vanishing point to be in perspective. If I decided I wanted to put a roof on it, say I wanted to bisect this up the middle here, right down the halfway point, make my roof top line here, guess what? That's going to go back here, the top of the roof. And then I can finish out my roof the way I want to here, parallel here, etc. And that way here. Okay, there you go. Everything works in perspective. It's going this way or if it's going this way. All right, that's 2-point perspective. The last type of linear perspective is 3-point. Think of this as the worm's eye view, like the building's looming over the top of you, or the bird's eye view, like you're flying over the top of a building or a skyscraper. So let's do bird's eye view. This is where you take a horizon line here, put 2 vanishing points on it, just like you did with 2-point perspective. But the third vanishing point goes down here, below. I'm going to put a little star around it so you can kind of see it there, okay? Right above that line, but not touching it, draw a straight line. Any length you want, let's do that long, okay? Then you start just like 2-point perspective, and you go hash mark your way over here, and hash mark your way over here. Notice I'm going from the top and the bottom of this line again, just like 2-point perspective. And the same way over here. And the same way over here. Now, the same way we did with 2-point, pick a dot here. But instead of going straight up and down, you go down to the third vanishing point here. And draw your spatial line here. And do the same thing on this side. I'm going to pick a spot right here. and go down here. Hash mark your way the spatial lines down. And then you complete the top of your building the same way you did before with 2-point perspective. Heading opposite, you see what I'm saying? Over this direction and over here. See how that goes that way? Okay. And there is your skyscraper, so to speak, in 3-point perspective. You see it there? Now, if you wanted to do a bunch of windows in this direction, so you wanted to make a bank of windows that went on this side, your skyscraper. There's your, going back to the, notice how I'm going from here to here, okay? But the bottom, rather than going straight up and down this time, still goes back. To that third vanishing point. There we go. See how that works? And if you turn it this way, you see how how it would be in a worm's eye view. Okay? And here's the bird's eye view. You put your little pool and your helicopter landing pad there. One note about perspective, especially if you're in drawing 1 class and you're doing like your haunted house or your dream home. This is something that the artists in the 1500s found out. You think of something and you find a way that you want your home to look, and find out something that we all know as artists, and that is, say this is going to be my home here. And I'm going to do all kinds of things with it. Guess where my horizon line back here somewhere. Okay. Guess where my first vanishing point is on this side. It's off somewhere off in, I don't know, way off here, 3 or 4, 5 feet off. And this one may be right here. Most times your homes or what you're designed for, the vanishing points won't be on the page. You got to take your best guess, which is why most artists use this as a tool, but they learn it, but they just see it automatically just through practice. They never have to set up horizon lines and vanishing points or any of that kind of thing ever again. Maybe if you're an architect, yes, but not if you're an artist, okay? You just see it. You see the world in perspective, all right? Because it's not useful. Art will not be contained by math, period. That's it on perspective.